I've been a troublemaker for a long time, and I tend to continue for as long as I can. Thanks to Adam for inviting me to present here today. Thanks to all the other presenters whose important words you have heard, and believe me, they have been very important words, and those you will yet hear. A shout out also to poets in New Orleans and San Francisco and probably elsewhere who are having similar events today. Poets from 100,000 Poets for Change. Today is Brooks Day. It's Gwendolyn Brooks' birthday, and it's the second annual marathon reading of Gwendolyn Brooks' works, taking place at Printers Row Book Fair today.
Happy birthday, Gwendolyn.
Miss Brooks' spirit is here. Her spirit is here. The Gwendolyn Brooks who wrote these lines: "I am not a tight-faced poet. I am tired of little tight-faced poets sitting down to shape perfect, unimportant pieces. Poems that cough lightly, catch back a sneeze. This is a time for big poems, roaring up out of sleeves. Poems from ice, from vomit, and from tainted blood. This is the time for stiff or viscous poems, big and big." This is what you will hear today. If you travel across Lake Michigan from around Winnetka, you'll wind up on a beach near Benton Harbor. Benton Harbor, 90% black, or more than that, 99% black, is the home of Reverend Edward Pinckney, the first American banned from the internet. That's right, banned from using his computer so that the story of Whirlpool's corporate dictatorship over Benton Harbor will not get out. So that the story of the emergency manager dictatorships popping up all over Michigan now, but originating in Benton Harbor, will not get out. So that the story of the social face of fascism in this country will not get out. Now that the corporations like Whirlpool are so thoroughly embedded with and embedded in the political state, the protests emerging from places like Benton Harbor are challenging the legitimacy of corporate rule. Here is what the battle is about. Reverend Pinckney has not been convicted of any crime whatsoever. No person who has been convicted using the internet for cyberstalking, child pornography, or bank fraud has ever been banned from using the internet. But Reverend Pinckney, who's accused of election fraud, was ordered to refrain from going online for any reason. He sponsored a recall petition against the mayor of Benton Harbor. It gathered sufficient signatures. The recall petition has been more rigorously investigated than murders of young black men whose bodies are continually found in that area. Armed police officers went door to door interviewing petitioners and asking exactly what day they signed the petition. The rigorous investigation led to criminal charges against Pinckney. At a hearing on Thursday, the judge set a trial date for July 21st, 2014 on his case of voter fraud. Pinckney's gag order was probably instituted to prevent success of a number of initiatives, and probably the most important one was not only the protest against Benton Harbor's police department for refusing to investigate the deaths that I mentioned, but the recall of elected officials who Reverend Pinckney and others perceive as being in a place to represent corporate interests rather than the people of Benton Harbor. This story has been covered for more than a decade by the People's Tribune and the Tribuna del Pueblo. I've got those available on the table over there. Welcome to check them out. The centerfold of the current issue of the People's Tribune has a whole series of quotes about Reverend Pinckney, and also what you can do to help in the battle to free him, and also therefore to help in the process of trying to keep something like that coming from here. Donations if you can, but if you can't, that's okay too. Donations cover the cost of printing the paper, so that a blackout on stories like this won't continue. In order to respect the time for the other readers, I'd like to close with a couple of short poems and a final invocation of Gwendolyn Brooks. The first is by Ray Durham, an African-American communist poet who wrote the award in the early 50s when he was blacklisted. Ray wrote, "A gold watch to the FBI man who has followed me for 25 years. Well, old spy, looks like I led you down some pretty blind alleys. Took you on several trips to Mexico, fishing in the high Sierras, jazz at the Philharmonic. You've watched me all your life. I've clothed your wife. I've put your 2 sons through college. But what good has it done? The sun keeps rising every morning. Ever see me buy an assistant president? Or close a school? Or lend money to Trujillo? Ever catch me rigging airplane prices? I bought some after-hours whiskey in LA once, but the chief got his pay. I ain't killed no Koreans or 14-year-old boys in Mississippi. Neither did I bomb Guatemala or lend guns to shoot Algerians. I admit I took a Negro child to a white restroom in Texas. But she was my daughter, only 3, who had to pee." Ray Durham. And the second is a poem by John Beecher. Beecher came from a long line of abolitionists, talking about abolitionists from a different time. Beecher wrote this in the 40s during the Second World War. And he's wondering whether Etowah County, Alabama, is really part of the U.S., just as we might wonder about Benton Harbor, Detroit, much of Michigan under emergency dictatorships, or for that matter, Chicago under the Rahm Emanuel dictatorship. News item. I see in the paper this morning where a guy in Gadsden, Alabama by the name of John House, who was organizing rubber workers in a lawful union against the wishes of the Goodyear Rubber Company and the sheriff of Etowah County, was given a blood transfusion after being beaten with blackjacks by 5 parties unknown. The police chief is investigating. And I have a pretty good idea what that will amount to. The government of the United States should know about John House. But maybe they won't notice the little item in the back pages of the Birmingham paper, because the front pages are all filled up with Hitler and how he is threatening democracy. And so I'm asking the government of the United States to pay a little attention to this, to defend democracy. The government of the United States is building a lot of munitions plants around the country with the people's money, because the people want democracy defended. And one of these plants is being built at Gadsden in Etowah County, Alabama, which isn't even a part of the United States. Or is it? I think it would be a good idea for the government of the United States to look into this and see if they can't persuade Etowah to come back in the Union. If persuasion won't work, they might try a little coercion, because the laws of the United States ought to be made good. And as luck would have it, there's a great big army camp at Anniston just 30 miles away. Not long ago, I drove through this camp and saw new barracks and tents all over the scenery, and thousands upon thousands of soldiers getting ready to defend democracy. They looked to me as if they could do it, and they looked to me as if they wanted to try it. Well, maybe they could get a little practice over in Etowah before they pitch into the foreign fascists. John Beecher. And finally, don't let the messages you hear today end here. From Gwendolyn Brooks again, from the same poem, and the words, the voice of Winnie Mandela, who says, "You don't get all your questions answered in this world. How many answers shall be found in the developing world of my poem? I don't know. Nevertheless, I put my poem, which is my life, into your hands, where it will do the best it can." With the hopes that you all do the best you can in taking these words out, come talk with me if you can. Sign the People's Tribune mailing list. Get a copy of the People's Tribune today. Thank you.